Greetings and welcome back to the Old Ways Rising Farm YouTube channel. As you can see, I finished making blanks out of both halves of this log, and I think they both came out pretty nicely. The thing I don't like about these is they do both have some little checks starting right along here. This one is worse because it has the pith in it right there. This one is not quite as bad, but there's a hairline fracture coming in, and that just happened overnight. I finished axing these out last night, and I mean, it was too late in the day to get into the next step and burning them, and I had them laying against the ground and was hoping they wouldn't start to check, but they did. So we've got to get these thin quick, because once you start working on them, they lose water very, very quickly, and they will check when you have thick cross sections. You're always going to get checks if the middle of the log is in there. And some woods are even going to blow up on you if you quarter them, right? So we've got to get them thin. We've got to work on it. Now, these are absolutely dead. Squirt you in the face with water when you put an axe to them green, okay? So that's part of why they're checking. It's also part of why they're intact. If I had let these dry all the way out before I tried to do this, they would explode and I would not have anything even close to resembling a trough. This is both good and bad for the burning process. It's bad because it won't burn to the point of sustaining its own combustion, but it's good because it won't burn to the point of sustaining its own combustion, right? So we can burn it, but it will not flare up and burn all of its own volition the way really, really dry. Like trying to do this with dry pine would be a total disaster. You would have no control over what's going on. But because these still have quite a bit of moisture in them, we're going to mound coals where we want it to burn and not elsewhere. Now, okay, we had to adjust the camera there for a second. So we're going to put a mound of hot coals out of the fire. Notice the fire, I don't have a lot of flame. I just in a mound so that it would cook down to coals. So I have coals in there. And we're going to take these, dig some of these out, and make a nice little pile of red hot coals on top of our bowl where we want it to burn. And the objective is to have those coals locally dry out and burn the wood, but without the wood itself sustaining uncontrolled combustion. Okay? So this is the game. And this is a long, tedious process. This will not be short. And after I take some coals out, then I will go back and rebuild the fire to get some more. And we'll be able to work on both of these troughs at once. Oh, smoke in the eye. There we go. Both of these troughs at once. You ever notice that with a campfire, whichever direction you are is downwind, no matter which direction you are? It's the thing. So that's the game that we're going to play. And this will remove wood. You can see there's a little bit of flame coming in here underneath this pile. This will remove wood in a controlled way. It will fire harden the inside, and it will drive off the moisture. So when we're done, this will be dry. Okay. Now, because it's going to fire harden the inside, it's going to partially melt and soften the lignin, which will allow the wood to flex, so it won't check as it's losing this moisture all of a sudden. And then it will be dry when it's finished. Okay, so it'll be just immediately dry. Now, I may still have some issues with checking here in this very thick edge, right? Because this isn't going to get that same treatment. But if the whole rest of it is dry, those checks shouldn't crawl all the way in and ruin our project. So we're just going to have ourselves some little fires here. I'll blow on it. Some people will do this and blow on it with a blowpipe. I don't have one of those, so I will just kneel down and blow on it the old-fashioned way. And as we progress, I will come back and show you several stages along the way. Okay, we've been at this for, half hour, 40 minutes or so. Um, I did add a few more coals in here. We've got nice heat, nice and controlled. You see, when you're doing something like this, control is everything. You don't want a big, gigantic, flaming fire in here, or it's just going to consume your whole project, right? Fire is an ally, but it's a dangerous one. So now what I want to do is kind of nudge these coals over without putting them out. Nudge them over, and we'll do another section. Kind of push them in the middle there. Okay, they're still good and hot. And now I'm going to take the shovel, and I'm just going to scrape away all of the charred wood from in here and see where we are with things. We have smooth. We've gotten a little wider, but obviously we still have quite a lot of depth to go. So there are advantages and disadvantages to every method. Smoke's coming in my eyes. I'm going to take a step forward here. Metaphorical since I'm kneeling. This will fire harden the wood. That's an advantage. It doesn't require any tools except a shovel of your choice. That's an advantage. It is very low labor intensity. That's an advantage. But there's disadvantage. It's slow. Right? This is absolutely slower than doing it with steel tools. So, advantages and disadvantages to everything. So we'll keep doing this. As soon as that gives me some more coals, I'll, add a little bit more to it here. I scooped all of the hot coals out and then pretty much had to rebuild the fire here in the interim to get both of them going. You can see there's coals in that one too. And we'll just keep gradually working them back and forth, burn, scrape, burn, scrape, burn, scrape, until we have our wall thickness where we want it. Okay? So I'm going to do this for a while, and when there's another intermediate step of interest, we'll come back and film that. Okay, I just wanted to show this really quick. This is kind of an ideal situation, what I've got going on here on this end of the trough. You see I have a little mound of stuff here. I have a piece across, and there's good air circulation underneath. So, again, this is green wood. It's not going to sustain flame for a long time. But all of this heat is very rapidly cooking the water out of it. So in this arrangement, I can let it sit there for a few minutes. It gets a little ash on top of the charcoal in the bottom. And then if I blow on it, it will flame up for a little bit, burn off that layer of charcoal, the flames go down, and then it bakes up another layer of charcoal. So again, very, very controlled. I'm getting the burn exactly where I want it. Mm-hmm. It's not taking over the entire trough. It's not wiping things out and coming up over the top the way this would if it was a really, really flammable piece. Fire can be your ally, but it's a dangerous ally. I've said that already in this video. And this is a very controlled setting. You don't want, when you're doing these sorts of traditional skills, control is everything, right? Control is everything. You don't want, I'll put it this way, if it's a scene that looks like it belongs in an action movie, you're doing it wrong. So, I'm back to it, and I'll see you when there's another thing to show. Okay, it's the next day, so we burnt this out yesterday evening until dark, probably, what would you say, hon, 3-4 hours?
Yeah, about.
Somewhere in there. Didn't time it exactly. And of course I'll switch my face again. I've got the fire started to start work for the next day. It's going to take about an hour, hour and a half for that to burn down to give me nice coals to work with. And I want to scoop out all of the cold coals from last night's festivities. and see where we are in this. These are dead cold, so if I drop one, it's not a big deal. Okay. And I want to scrape all of the coal away from the wood and see what the wood actually looks like underneath. If you are replicating a traditional technology, a specific culture or region, I'm going to move the other side here, you would be absolutely justified in making a specific scraper. If you were doing this for a living history museum, something of that nature. But if you're just doing this in your backyard because you're interested in learning the technology, a small shovel with a slightly rounded edge, not sharp, you don't want, this is not sharpened, right? Is a very good scraper for removing the charcoal that won't dig big chunks out of the wood. That's just a splinter from when I was axing it. Okay. And you can see we made a fair amount of progress. Okay. You do want to get down to the wood to see what's actually there, because sometimes you'll have charcoal crustaceans and crustaceans. Not a crustacean, we don't have a charcoal lobster.
If we did, that'd be a bigger problem.
That would be an interesting YouTube video, right? We'll have incrustations that will hide the actual geometry. Now, these can get a little bit lumpy, and I'm actually going to bring this one over just to kind of show you. Quite a bit lighter than before. But if you look at this one, there's a big lump here in the middle and it's low on the ends. So I had the original body of coals here in the middle and then kind of bridged over a little bit so there's more of a hollow there so the air could get down in and burn more efficiently. So you can control, if you want it to burn a little bit, you put the coals right on top. If you want to burn it a lot, you bridge across and let the air get under, right? So today, I will start with coals here and here and try to bridge that and burn that middle out. I'll just set this back down. Fine. Now I want to talk about moisture content a bit. If you're going to do this sort of stuff, get one of these moisture meters. I think I paid $12 or $15 for this one, shipped. They're not real expensive. Inflation doing what it's doing, tomorrow this could be a totally erroneous price, so grain of salt, but they're not outlandishly expensive. Is this a traditional tool appropriate for a time period in culture that's hollowing with fire? No, but we live in the modern world. In a lot of ways we are skills orphans, and we can use some of these tools to relearn things that our ancestors could do by eye. So I'd recommend you get one. Now, if I turn this guy on, it doesn't have a setting specific for this species. The setting for white poplar, I'm not 100% sure which of the bunch of things that people call poplar this company called white poplar, but I'm going to look at a relative reading anyway, right? So I put this right in the end. I have 93% moisture, right? Remember, I wasn't lying when I told you this is absolutely dead green wood that we're working on. If I come up here to the edge where it's been exposed for a little bit, I get 62% moisture right there. In the middle, it's reading 80. I stuck it in a little bit farther. But here close to where it's burnt, if I stick it way in, I can still get to 90. If I look where it was close to the flames, right there, I'm reading 7% moisture. Okay. If I stick it as far as I can get those prongs to go, I can get it to go up to 15. Okay. So this is that localized effect. Wood is a good insulator. So about the depth of these prongs, and I can get in this soft poplar, I can get those most of the way in. Right here, it's 90% moisture raw. Those prongs are about a 1/4 inch deep that I can get them into the wood, 1/4 inch to maybe 3/8. And then after that, it's 90% moisture again. This is what's giving me the control. Okay, this is what's giving me the control over the burn. So it can only burn a 1/4 inch. It has to dry out that 1/4 inch, and then it can burn it. And then it dries out the next 1/4 inch, and then it can burn it. Then it dries out the next 1/4 inch, and then it can burn it. This is very slow and methodical, but controlled. And again, we want a nice finished product, so we want the control. And that's what's giving us that control, is that temperature gradient. Okay? So we are getting, if I stick them 3/8 inch down, I'm back into that 90% out here. But here, if I stick them 3/8 inch in, it's only 15% or so. So when I can burn this all the way to a 1/4 inch, and the outside will still be too wet to burn. Okay? That's the control inherent in this method. So, I'm going to sign off. I'm going to keep working on this, and after another day and a half, this takes time, right? I wasn't lying when I said this takes time. So after another day and a half, where I have some substantial progress doing the same thing, mound coals, bridge across, leave air underneath where you really want it to burn, mount coals directly on top of a region you want to burn a little, and char a little. And I'm just going to keeping it as even as possible. Right, that one has a hump, so that's where I'll focus my burning first. This one is pretty smooth, so I'm going to try and get it fairly even. Okay? And after a bit more time, I'll give you another update. Okay, just excuse me. Okay, just a little bit of an update here. When we first started out this morning, it was 11, give or take a few, and now it's about 2:30, give or take a few. But I wanted to give you a little bit of an update. The depth is coming in very nicely. So we have more and more area here, so we can actually start to build a little fire actually inside the bowl, instead of just little mounds of coals that we push around. And that'll help move things along a little bit faster. And the depth was coming in faster than the width. That's because when you just have a little wad of coal in the middle, the hot air escapes up the sides, and there's nothing really to trap it and hold it against the edge, right? So what I've done here is, again, mostly I'm using coals out of the campfire, but now I'm mounting them against the sides, keeping the middle open, and putting a little bit of a top on it, just to reflect the heat back down. So this way we're still going to be eroding the depth, because there's air access to the middle, so it can still burn out quite nicely. And these little pieces along the sides will reflect the heat to the sides, so it's going to grow in width and not just in depth. And then periodically here, I'll put them on the ends a little bit. You can see on this one, I overlapped the piece on the end. We got a nice burnout over in that direction. Got a little carried away, so I just moved stuff away, let it cool down, and then after this is all burned out, I'll scrape it and see where it is and adjust as needed. So it's just function of play with it, work with it, keep moving your materials around, keep moving your materials around so that you get the heat where you want it, so that you're burning out the bits of the log that you want. Now also, it's kind of interesting when this really gets going, because we're boiling off the sap in the green wood. If you feel down here, you start to see that like my hand comes up wet, right? And there's big wet ring right around here in the edge, and a couple of these support logs, that one's really wet. It's just running down the sides of these little pieces of support, and that's the sap coming out. Now at the point that stops, you're pretty close to dry, and then you're going to burn a lot faster, so you're going to have to keep a much closer eye on it. Mm-hmm. Right, so that means that region of wood has dried out and can now could support flame much more readily. Like on this piece, I can see there's a ring here where it's wet, and then the inside is dry. That means that this region is pretty close to dry. so it can burn over more rapidly. So you have to watch that. So I wouldn't want to tent this all the way over here, or it would just burn all the way through and I'd have a big gully there. That would be sad. Now, that's not the end of the world. I deliberately left this crazy thick, assuming that there will be some top damage and we'll take a lot more off the top before we make a finished piece out of it. So, the wind is telling me that I need to get out of this current position. We'll end this update and talk in a couple hours, or a couple seconds your time. Okay, another little update. I just did a scrape. It's about an hour and a half after the last lasso. I just did a scrape. We've made a lot of progress here since the last update. The depth is coming in nicely. There's still 4 or 5 inches I can go down here in the middle, so I'm going to keep working on it. The walls are narrowing a little bit, and I'm as long as I really want it to be. I want to, even that spot. Not too bad right there, but I want to even this spot out a little bit more, so I will have some coals against that. But on this end, figures, this is the upwind side. On this end, it when I feel underneath, I can start to feel it really hot right underneath here. Okay, so I know I'm getting kind of close to the slope I cut into it. So I'm going to keep the coals well away from this end and just work over here and work down for the rest of this burnout. So I will go ahead and restack this just like all of the previous times. But it is good when you're doing this, every so often you want to drag everything out, see what you've got, see what it looks like, and pay attention to these things. The heat that I feel coming through here isn't the heat of the fire itself as much as it's the boiling sap that's being pushed through. But it's close enough to the edge that boiling sap isn't losing temperature by the time it gets to the other side. Previously it's felt cold and wet, now right here it feels hot and wet. So it's not like I'm in immediate danger of breaching through and making a hole, but there are some fairly large checks that are opening up right in that spot, which is not surprising because that's, the pith isn't in it, but the pith was right here. So you would expect it to check right in that area. And I want the flames to smooth that out, but I don't want to come further in, because we want to leave a little extra meat there. So again, I will stack it with some coals about here, some coals about here, and then kind of bridge it across so the air can get in underneath and burn out the bottom. And I'm going to focus more on working down and just kind of let the sides end up as they end up. So they'll widen a little bit, I'm sure, but that'll easily flatten, this will easily smooth, that'll easily flatten just from the heat that radiates back and forth and chars those surfaces a little bit. Mostly I want to focus again on digging down in. And that one has some nice burning going. It's also kind of getting hot on the one side. I'm going to go and do the same thing with it. Kind of leave this other side mounted up for a little while longer, but before I do a complete scrape. So I'm going to get on with it, refilling this before it loses too much more heat. You can see it's still smoking a little bit. I'd like to have that heat in here and not, take as long to heat it back up and get the burning to resume. But once this is going, then I'll go and do a good clean out and address that one. So, hope you're still enjoying it. If you like it so far, give it a thumbs up. I think it's a bowl that's worth a thumbs up. So, see you in a few seconds your time and a few hours mine. Okay, so it's about 6:30, same day. We started about 10, so we've got about 8.5 hours in on the burnout phase today, and we did about 4 yesterday. So this is about 10 to 11 hour project doing one of these. And we're about done on this bowl. So how I'm gauging that is I'm feeling it, right? So if I feel the bottom of this bowl right now, I can definitely feel the warmth of the fire starting to bleed through, especially in the middle. Right here at the corner, that's still cold, and the end down through here is hot all the way down from the steam coming through. A few minutes ago, you could even see the steam coming out the end, especially of that one over there, but I scooped that one out a few minutes ago. So with the heat coming through like that, we're getting close enough that I don't want to push it farther. And we'll have a nice inch to two, inch and a half or so of thickness all the way around, and that should be fine for this. Also, it's going to be very, very dry because just about all of the moisture is blown out the ends. Okay, so we've kind of force dried it very, very quickly. And it's hollow, so it could crack. Like dugout canoes that were made with this same process always crack. Even if they don't crack when they dry the first time, the wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry cycles will eventually crack them. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do get some checks in this, but typically where you get your checks from is, if you think of a half log, the outside dries faster than the inside, and as it does, it pulls apart, and that's your check. What we've done is force dried the inside and hollowed it, so the drying effect is to collapse it in, and that's much less likely to produce a check. At least a big one. Now, I know that I do have a couple in the end there, and I definitely have a couple in the end of that one in particular. So it's not going to be completely check free, but for a dough bowl, it doesn't have to hold water, right? So we'll see how when they get all the way dry, we'll see how it works. So I'm going to go ahead and dig out this one. I'm hoping that this is the final burn. Barring any really strange topography, it will be. But I'm going to take these coals over because I want one more burn in this to get this end is kind of high. So I want to do a little bit more burning there. So I'm just going to transfer these nice hot coals, these are the big ones, over to this bowl. And then we'll scrape the bottom out. See what we got. It's blowing in a storm here overnight, but beautiful 70-degree shorts and t-shirt weather. First true super nice shorts and t-shirt weather of the year. Very grateful for that. Okay. That. Now we're just going to, you can see, you can just scoop the charcoal out of these. Chuck it in the fire pit. Again, a shovel. This is all you really need for a scraper for this project. I think I said this in one of the earlier clips earlier today. If you wanted to do this for a living history museum, and you wanted a particular scraper and a particular wood for replicating a particular cultural complex or artifact, that's one thing, and a very good thing. But if you're just doing this in your yard, don't be shy about throwing some modern tools in the project. They'll work just fine. Big chunk of charcoal there. And it's like I was saying when I was using the moisture meter, in a way we're kind of orphans with these skills. Most people in the modern world weren't raised with them. We need to relearn them. And it's just fine to relearn one piece at a time. You don't have to learn flint knapping and make a cultural period authentic scraper in order to learn the control of fire to make a dugout container part of the equation. You can learn this with the modern tools, then learn to flint knap and make those tools. We'll do some flint knapping videos here in time. Just put it together a piece at a time. And that is indeed going to be done. Has a beautiful hollow. I like it. It's pretty even. Doing it this way, it's never going to be 100% perfectly even. Tip it up a little bit. It's already pretty lightweight. Is that showing up well in the frame, hon? Okay. It's nice and deep. And again, I don't want to push this too far because I'm going to come with some more tools, and I don't want to dump hot coals in the grass here. But I'm going to come in with some more tools and work on rounding this off a little bit more on these corners here and there. That was fun. Thank you. Thank you, Wind.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody loves hot coals in the face. Just swirled and blew them up on me. Blah. I mean, the mouth. Blah. There's the technical term for the day. If you get hot coals in your mouth because the wind swirled in your dough bowl, the technical term is blah. Okay, so we have created our item. Now I will clean this up a bit more inside, but I'm going to leave it out here to cool for a while because I don't want those hot coals in the house. So we'll let this get all the way cool, and it's overnight. It's going to rain overnight, so it'll collect a little bit of water in there, but I'm not too worried about that. And then once it's all the way cool, we'll bring it in, we'll clean it up, and we'll dry it out. Let it get all the way dry. And I wish I could get a moisture meter reading on it here for you, but I don't think that's going to happen because it's too hot to safely use the tool right now, and it's going to be soaking wet with rain till it's cool enough, right? So that just isn't in the cards on account of the weather. But we will get this dry all the way down to 10%, and it's already pretty nice. I bet that 15 pounds. It's probably 60 or 70 when I started with the dead green log, and it'll probably be down to around 10 or so when it's all the way dry. Then I'm going to put these two videos up, and then there'll be a lag, just let it dry all the way out, and then when the whole thing's down to about 10% moisture content, we will even out the top, square off the sides, and make a nice base for it. So that'll be the next step, but I'm going to leave these two videos as a two-part series, and that will be a separate thing probably next month, because it's going to, I want to let it get all the way good and dry before going into joinery stages. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope that you will be back for the rest of it in a month or so. Till then, have a wonderful day.